It's 3 key wide receiver targets to watch for Florida State University as summer visits heat up. So the intel on 3 different receiver targets for Florida State, starting, Michael, with 4-star wide receiver Dalen McCutchen. What are you hearing about McCutchen and Florida State?
Yeah, the Dalen McCutcheon's visited FSU multiple times. And it's not an easy trip to get over to Tallahassee from Texas. So it's like a 10-hour drive. So he's really fell in love with FSU. I like how things are trending with them, especially with the visit weekend of when he comes in. He comes in on the June 21st weekend. I really like the relationships that they built, and also just the fit, because that's also one of the biggest things is what kids are going to look for, and he feels that. He feels that when he watches this offense, he sees the nature of what Mike Norvell says of it's built for playmakers. Because he fits in that category. He does a lot of different things after the catch. So I think there's a lot of high entry. Even though he is from Texas, he's a guy that I feel like FSU's trending for in a good direction. I think the fact that they're getting him in for that last official visit on the 21st is a major deal for FSU, and the fact that he's been on campus multiple times. And we're not talking about visits that are just one day. I mean, he's taken multiple day visits to FSU, so it's extensive as far as what he sees on each trip. And there's just a connection he has with Norvell and Dugans and the offensive staff that I think is really unique and special.
And Michael, to remind everybody, June 21st is the Mac Daddy weekend. That's the
Yeah,
one. They've
yeah.
got a few weekends where they're going to bring kids on campus, and each one is going to have, important players, star players. But the 21st, a
Oh, yeah.
lot of eggs going in that basket, right?
Absolutely, and Tramel Jones just kind of mentioned that of how they've kind of orchestrated the 21st weekend, and they've told every top guy, they want to get them there. Now they're not going to get everybody that weekend, but the majority of their major targets want to be that weekend. They want to really nail it, and it's really the last official visit, weekend that you can take, because I think July is kind of a dead period in then certain parts, and in the end I think there's maybe one weekend where you can do some stuff, but it's a big weekend for them, and it's a big chance to really, I think, get some good news. And I think there's, based on how things are trending, there's going to be multiple things I think that'll be good news for FSU coming out of that weekend. So yeah, certainly it's major, not just for with Dalen, but also just the offensive line where they're hosting a lot of guys. So I think it's going to be a significant weekend for FSU.
Second wide receiver that we'll talk about here is Vernell Brown Jr., and he's got a lot of high-profile schools interested in his services, Michael. But what do you think about this particular prospect out of South Florida?
Yeah, he's a guy that they were on a lot for the last 2, 3 years. FSU's really built their relationship with him. He's been to FSU several times, probably around 3, 4 times. So he's a guy that they've had on campus regularly. Ohio State, FSU has always been the two teams that I've heard the most. You can't count out Florida because that's a legacy. He's a legacy. His dad played there, so definitely a team that's still pushing and certainly be in that three margin of teams. But for the most part, yeah, I continue to hear about FSU, Ohio State. Certainly, Ohio State's really difficult to beat it for a receiver. We know that. There goes without saying. But there's a connection with FSU that's very unique. And two, you're coming off 2 straight years of productivity on the field, consistency. So I think Vernell sees that. He loves what this offense does and how it benefits him. And two, the quarterback room for FSU is very detailed and set, real strong. You have Brock Glenn, Luke Cromahawk, and obviously you have DJ there, and a few others. But it's a very strong room of, you don't have to worry about just one guy being able to take over the helm. And the receivers, they want to know who's the dudes are going to be at quarterback. They want to know that, hey, they're going to be covered if they do go there. And I think Vernell feels very strongly about. They feels very strongly about the product and what FSU is doing. So I think FSU is very much in there, more so than probably people mention. I would still favor a little bit more towards Ohio State, but I think FSU is very much in there with a guy like Vernell Brown.
So Vernell's from Orlando. I skipped over the South Florida prospect,
There you
but
go.
Vernell and McCutchen are both a little bit smaller, a little under 6 feet tall. This prospect out of South Florida, and Joshua Moore, is not. He's
Yeah.
a much lankier, longer receiver out of South Florida that has a big name program really pushing for his services.
Yeah.
Michael, tell us a little bit about Joshua Moore.
Yeah, he's a guy that's kind of blown up in the spring or off season, I would say, compared to those other two. Those other two have been top prospects for a while, where Joshua had to really, go off junior film, and then what he did in the spring, whether it be camps or whatnot, to really boost him up. He started as a 3-star, and now he's already bumped all the way up to a 4-star. There's a lot of top programs after him. FSU is certainly one of them. I visited FSU in the spring, I think in April. They really made a strong impression, but it goes back to what their product has been the last 2 years, that is really captivating these recruits. And Joshua falls in that category where he sees what FSU's doing consistently. They're doing everything they said they're going to do. They're going to make this offense built for playmakers. And in every way, if you look at it, where it's offensive line, receivers, tight ends, running backs, they're all seeing this stuff of how explosive this offense can be. And I think Moore really got a sense of that when he visited that in April. I think they're a team that's trending in the best direction for Joshua. I won't say they're a clear leader, but they're the team I hear about the most. So I would say they're a team that's certainly you want to pay attention to. There's other schools. There's plenty of schools in there, like Miami, Florida, probably Southern Cal, some other schools that are in there that are pushing hard, that I mentioned in our story and that breakdown. But Moore is definitely one that is extremely highly coveted by FSU. I will say that all three of them are coveted, but Moore's probably the guy that I hear the most buzz about. Maybe if I might say Dalen a little bit more, but it's close. But either way, Moore's a guy that I've heard a lot of, like, hey, from the FSU side, we got to get that guy. So they put a lot of emphasis in this guy, and all of them are top playmakers. And the one thing they all do, whether it's wide out or slot, they get open, they get separation, and that's the thing that FSU's kind of searching for. The next step in their offense is getting guys with separation.
You could take a look at that too. I know we just we pulled that back down, and that's fine. But on
Yeah,
three is on this particular prospect a little bit earlier than everybody else. Joshua Moore, according to On Three, is a top 10 player in the state of Florida, top 10 receiver, top 60 player in the country. Compared to some of those other outlets, he's going to shoot up the ranks. He's already a 4-star, Michael, but that rating is going to go up, the industry ranking, quite high
yeah,
once the other services match up with what On Three already has him as. That speaks to your point that he's a late bloomer in terms of the process.
yeah, definitely. And he's just a guy that's really exploded. He isn't just like going out there and performing okay. I mean, he's the best at his position whenever he goes these camps or these events, or even showing his film in junior year. Sometimes it takes a little longer to, for guys to certain mature or explode to what their capabilities of skill is. And certainly Joshua seemed to be or it might be just the case. You know what? People are just too stupid. They didn't pay attention to him, and then here he is, and they're finally seeing how good he is. But either way, phenomenal talent, and certainly one that I know FSU wants badly.